Good morning, Reverend Derek here. And today we're going to talk about when you're overwhelmed by the world. And specifically, we're going to be talking about A Course in Miracles lesson 182, I will be still an instant and go home. The world's really noisy. The world's really overwhelming. Most people have a lot of things going on in their individual life. And then we can see that obviously there's a lot of things going on in our collective life. A lot of this is more than our bodies were even designed to handle. And so just your personal stuff alone is overwhelming. And then you look what's going on in the world, and that too is overwhelming. And so in today's conversation, we're going to focus on what to do in these moments when we're feeling overwhelmed. Whether you're feeling overwhelmed by your own personal grief, your own personal struggles and heartbreak, your goals and things you have going on in your life, or whether it's things going on in your city, across the country, or all around the world, I promise you that by the end of this video, you are going to walk away with a couple ideas, a couple principles and practices that you can implement right now to start experiencing a more relaxed, more still life. I believe that by having stillness within, we can start to project that stillness around us and begin to experience miracles all around us. Now, before we get further into the talk, I do want to take a moment and have us say a prayer together. So if you feel comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes, put your hand on your heart. And dear God, we invite you in this morning into our minds, that they may be renewed, that we may think clearly, that we may think thoughts of love, thoughts as you would have us think, the thoughts of our true self. And we invite you into our heart, that we may have greater understanding, greater compassion and love for our brothers, and that we may learn to move through the world with stillness. Stillness that we share with the rest of the world. And we say together, Amen. So the world is really loud. The world is really noisy. As I was preparing this sermon and getting ready to go live, I found myself getting very frustrated because in the room next door, I could hear my cat getting into the trash and chewing on a plastic bag of grapes. That is one of his favorite things, not grapes, plastic bags. And just the crinkling sound of the plastic bag was driving me nuts. I could not think. I was just got so frustrated. I had to stop everything I was doing and go remove the plastic and give him some food. And he's always been like that. And I can't tell you how many times I woke up in the middle of the night and I could hear him chewing on plastic, and it would just drive me crazy. And this is a cat. This is something I love, something I adore. And it's a problem I can avoid just by making sure there's no plastic sitting out. But this is such a perfect example of how the noise of the world can disturb us. Again, that's just my cat. There's other noise in the world, in our internal world and the external world, that drives us crazy. And just like as I was preparing to talk about this and hearing my cat do that, it disrupted me. It shifted my mood. I'm sure my cortisol levels went up a little bit. I tried to ignore it at first, but it just kept getting louder and louder until finally I was like, I have to do something about this. And again, that's small, but that is just such a common thing in our lives. The noise. The Course in Miracles says there's no hierarchy to miracles or to fear. That is basically all fear is the same. Everything was equally disturbing to your mind. So whether it's my cat chewing on plastic, or it's something I'm reading in the news, or a disagreement with a colleague, it's all equally disturbing to our mind. Putting hierarchies on it just doesn't do us any favor. All fear is equally disturbing to our minds. And the same is true for miracles, that miracles have no order of difficulty. Whether God is looking, you want God to help heal your financial situation, your health, whatever it might be, the same power, the same love does all of that equally. Now, in our experience, we certainly feel a big difference between a mild annoyance and deep grief. But to God, it is all the same, and the same principles, the same practices that you would use to heal, you know, a broken finger can also heal the world. Now, let's get back to this noise. This noise shows up everywhere. And the biggest problems with the noise is at first, it raises your cortisol levels. We know that a lot of illnesses are deeply tied to our stress levels. And a lot of illnesses are created by chronic stress. And not only are a lot of illnesses created by chronic stress, the ones that are genetic, the ones that are created by other situations and other circumstances, are aggravated by chronic stress. And so, first and foremost, you want to take care of our bodies. We want to take care of our bodies so that we can be mentally alert, physically healthy, and able to live our lives in the best way we can. And so, by allowing that noise to get into our minds, to get into our hearts, it then gets into our body, and it begins to disrupt things physically, mentally, emotionally. Now, the other problem with the noise is a tool of the ego. It's a tool that the ego uses to control you. So, according to A Course in Miracles, the ego is fear. It's a false sense of self. It's the part of you that identifies with your body and the physical world, and not the part of you that remembers who it is. We'll get to that part in a moment. So, the challenge here is that the noise, regardless of what it is, pulls us into fear. Fear is like gravity. It just pulls you down. Now, let's think of some examples. You might have some situation at work. Maybe you have a colleague, or maybe there's something happening in another department or even in your department, and it's aggravating and it's frustrating and it's really noisy. A lot of people are putting in their opinions. You have your opinions, and it's just an overwhelming situation. Interesting thing about A Course in Miracles is A Course in Miracles actually birthed from a moment like that. For those of you who know the story, you know that A Course in Miracles was created in the 60s by two psychologists who were working in a department that they found really difficult to work in. A lot of ego, a lot of competition, a lot of selfishness, a lot of greed. And two people decided, hey, there's got to be a different way. There's got to be a different way of living. And so they set out to find that way. And that's how they discovered A Course in Miracles, and how that became a book. Two people were trying to find another way of living in noise. And this noise gets in and it just infects our minds, it affects our hearts. And so what do I mean by noise? Well, you think about how the way most people get up in the morning, and what are the first things you do? You wake up, you start thinking about your day, you start thinking about the problem you're having with this person, you start thinking about this bill, start thinking about all the things you have to do. The way the ego first gets you is by pulling you out of the present moment. The metaphysical significance of the cross is the cross represents God entering down, and the part that goes horizontal represents time. The only time you can experience God is in the present moment. So that is the metaphysical meaning of the cross. So it's only in the present moment that we can experience God. But so often the very first thing that when we wake up in the morning, the ego starts getting us thinking about the past and the future. The moment we think about the past and the future, we're no longer thinking with the thoughts of God, and we're no longer thinking with the thoughts of our soul, our intuition. We're now pulled into ego and fear. Sometimes that's before you even open your eyes, right? Like, how many times have you done that? And then you grab your phone. Social media, Apple News alerts, emails. One of the things I do that I hate that I do is the first thing I wake up in the morning and I check Slack to see what's going on at work, see if I, got any sales, see if I missed any important updates. And sometimes I'll see something posted by another channel, and just like right off the bat, I'm like, these fucking people, this department, and I just get pulled into it. And so I have to be very mindful to not open Slack first thing in the morning, to not check my emails to see who's emailing me. And I'm single, I live alone. So I'm not also dealing with people in my home. For many of you, you wake up to a spouse, a partner, children, whoever you live with, people you're caretaking for. You wake up with that. And so now you also don't only have just your ego and your fears and your concerns to deal with, you now have somebody else's. And then you jump on your phone and it's crazy. You pull up your phone and instantly you see what's going on in your city, your state, your entire country, and all around the world. I found myself last week looking at something that was going on in another country, and I had to remind myself that this doesn't directly affect me, and I don't need to I don't need to let it stress me out. This doesn't mean I don't care. This doesn't mean I don't pray for those people, but it doesn't serve anyone to get upset about every single thing happening all around the world. And this is how the ego pulls you off track. And here's the danger of this. You start your mornings that way. The ego's already pulled you off track and you go into your day. You're stressed, you start over caffeinating, and that's when you find yourself being rude to your loved ones, not listening to one of your customers, being angsty and just not being yourself with other people, not being solution oriented. I find myself doing this if I don't get up and meditate and pray in the morning, and we'll talk about that importance here in just a second. If I don't do that, I'll find myself saying something to someone and being like, afterwards, like, why did you say that? Like, that was not the most loving thing. That was not the most kind thing. And I'm just like, because I didn't meditate and pray this morning, I was really snippy and rude with someone. Or I'm on the phone with a potential new customer at my day job, and I find myself like not listening, not truly being present to them. And that's not my natural self. That's not how I naturally am. But when I've woken up in the morning and I've spent most of the morning obsessing over what's going on in the world, it throws me off. And it's both internal and external. It's important to recognize that you have your internal dialogue going on, perhaps obsessing over something that happened in the past, perhaps obsessing over something you wish would happen, just thinking about your own emotions and what's going on with you and your health and decisions you have to make. And then you have the collective noise that is going on. So this is very overwhelming, and I don't have to tell you that. It's very overwhelming, and it doesn't help anyone. And, I think one of the dangers that we experience in spiritual communities is that when I say, it doesn't serve anyone by obsessing over all of this, a spiritually immature person might hear that we shouldn't care. And I'm not talking about not caring. The reality is, as a human being, you have what you can and what you cannot do. And so, it's very clear that like being upset about everything that's happening in the world doesn't help you and it doesn't help those people. And so finding your peace and your calm, that will guide you to what you can do. And it's important to do that. But we don't. I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago. He has a lot going on. He has some health challenges he's facing. And he said to me, I said, well, have you tried meditating? I'm like, you have a lot going on. You're really stressed out. Have you tried just sitting in stillness for 5 minutes every morning? And he said, oh, no, I can't meditate. Isn't that funny? We can doom scroll for an hour on Instagram or TikTok, whatever your drug of choice is. But we can't sit in stillness for 5 minutes. And this is how the ego stops us. The ego doesn't want you to, in the present moment, to remember who you are, because the way it controls you is by focusing on who you are not. You are a child of God. And your purpose in life is to show up in every single moment to the best of your ability as love. That simple. You are a child of God. Your purpose in every single moment is to show up as love. And that's not conditional. That doesn't mean you show up to love with your spouse only, or only with your children. That means you show up as love in every situation. You show up as love when you're in the morning looking in the mirror, talking to yourself. You show up as love, like when you're feeding your cat, when you're taking care of your children, but also when you're in line at Starbucks and the barista is snooty or makes your drink wrong, whatever it might be, you still show up as love then. You show up as love when dealing with your colleagues. You show up as love when dealing with your customers. You show up as love in any single moment. That is your purpose. We think we all have 1,000 different purposes, but at the end of the day, your purpose as a child of God is to show up as love. When we don't do that is when we have regrets. When we don't do that is when we act unlike ourselves. You ever notice when you say something to someone and that guilt you feel that you said that you treated them that way, that maybe you were dishonest, whatever it might be. And just that feeling of like, oh, I wish I hadn't acted that way. That's because you were not being your true self. Had you been in the moment, been your true self, you wouldn't have said those things and you wouldn't be feeling this way. But you can feel that throughout your life when you're acting unlike yourself, how that feels. That happened to me recently. I have a friend at work. We're friends and we're colleagues. And we got into, over the past couple months, there were just like seemingly little things here that he did that kind of annoyed me, frustrated me. And I didn't address it with him. I just like let it kind of sit with me. And even though I didn't address it, we both could feel it. And the tension grew. And eventually we got into it one day on Slack. And I just had to pause and I was like, Derek, this like, you care about this guy. You guys have been through, a lot the couple past years in this job. Like, why are you acting like this? And so I just messaged him. I said, hey, it was a Friday. I said, can we talk on Monday? And so we set up a meeting on Monday. Over the weekend, I thought about it because I knew I had a choice. I could continue the behavior I had. And probably like not have that friendship anymore. And then, and almost even like equally as bad, it's like I would then have a problem at work. And it's really important to me that at work, I have a very like comfortable space. I have good relationships. I don't want to show up at work and have difficult relationships. I don't want that. That's not how I want to live. And so I thought about it over the weekend. And as I thought about it over the weekend, there was a Course in Miracles quote that came to mind. Let me see if I can find it here. I can't remember which lesson is, but it's something along the lines, I will see you as my friend and remember that you are part of me. I will see you as my friend and remember that you are a part of me. And just remembering that line and remembering that lesson, I was able to just set it all aside. Now, when we met that Monday and we had the conversation, I had prayed and I had meditated, so I definitely went into it more of my true self, not the fear, ego-based, competitive self that sometimes shows up at work. And we sit down and he told me how frustrated he was with some things I'd said. And I totally like owned my part in that. And I explained to him why. It's an interesting relationship I have with this friend because I'm both a friend and I'm a leader there. And, love means compassion, and love means kindness. Sometimes love has to have authority as well. And so I just explained to him from my perception, like what I did wrong, where I was mistaken. And then, I lovingly let him know that there were these trends that I was seeing that to me felt, I won't get into it, but just like felt disrespectful to some other people. and that it had frustrated me, and that, we can't work like that. And I said that in a non-combative way, and in a very loving way, and at the end of the conversation, we were good. In fact, I would say that our relationship is now better than it was before, because we were able to just talk to each other and recognize what was going on. Now, that wouldn't have worked had I had I not meditated and prayed, had I just gone into the situation hostile and upset. Who knows what could have happened from there. But we've all been there, where we went into situations like that. But that is a miracle. Of course, the Miracles tells us that a miracle is a shift in perception from fear to love. And for me, that was a miracle, because it restored the friendship to the way it should be. Now, having said that, God enters in stillness. There's a story in the Bible regarding Elijah, and Elijah he's just worn down. He's venturing through ancient times, and he's exhausted. He's afraid. And so he goes to the mountains to find God. And there he is on the mountains looking for God. A wind comes. It's powerful. It's violent. It was not God. An earthquake comes. It's destabilizing. It's terrifying. It is not God. A fire comes. It's intense, consuming, not God. And then silence comes. And when silence comes in that stillness, then God comes, and then relief comes. And so it's not that God was absent before. It's just that with all that noise, all the things that led up to him feeling so frustrated and in despair, it's all of that noise of the wind, the earthquake, the fire, all that noise prevented him from hearing God. But then in the silence, there came God, there came relief. I don't know if he fell to his knees in prayer at that moment, but that's what I imagine happened. And the thing is, in this talk, I focused a lot on the negative consequences of what happens when the world is noisy and we give into it. Spiritual strength is when we resist the urge to go into fear. Spiritual strength, it's like lifting weights. When you're lifting weights, you're lifting the weight, working against gravity, and this is what builds your muscles. It's the same thing with spirituality. I'm not saying if you meditate and pray today, your world's going to change, but if you meditate and pray consistently, you are actively using your spiritual muscles to work against the gravity of fear. And by working against the gravity of fear consistently, you just get better at bouncing back when things get noisy, because you're now cultivating the ease of going into the silence and hearing the still, calm voice of God. And so what happens when we hear that still, calm voice of God? Our minds are calmer. We think more clearly. Maybe there's someone in your life you've been upset with, but you sit down and you're calm. You realize what you've been doing, how you've been contributing to this. Or maybe you have a financial problem, and you sit down, you get still, you get calm. And in that calmness comes an idea, a book, a voice that says, hey, you know what? Not this job anymore. Or, hey, here's this idea to go make more money elsewhere, whatever it might be. In your health, when you get still and you calm down, cortisol levels drop, the body falls into its natural state of healing. And in there comes clarity. And from that clarity, perhaps a voice tells you, hey, go try this doctor, go read this book, go try that diet. Solutions start to come in. Miracles occur first within, the shift in perception from fear to love, and then wherever the miracle is needed externally, it shows up there as well. All religious traditions talk about the importance of the morning. I cannot express enough how important it is every morning that you get up and you sit in stillness for 5 minutes. The Course says 5 minutes in stillness is enough to guarantee that your thoughts will be in the hands of the Holy Spirit. Now, Lesson 182 of A Course in Miracles says, I will be still an instant and go home. And I want to talk about this briefly with the time we have left. The world you seem to live in is not home to you. And somewhere in your mind, you know that this is true. A memory of home keeps haunting you as if there was a place that called you to return. Although you do not recognize the voice, nor what the voice reminds you of, yet still you feel an alien here from somewhere all unknown. I remember when I was a kid, there was something going on in my life. And I remember just something, I don't remember exactly what it was. It was an intense, very intense moment, probably with some violence and addiction, things like that. And I remember looking at it thinking, this can't be real. This cannot be happening. This cannot be life. And that really stuck with me. And later, years later, when I started exploring spirituality and studying A Course in Miracles, I read this lesson. And I realized that feeling came from the fact that this world is not our home. That was truth. That was my spirit saying, this is not real, because it literally is not real. The Course in Miracles says that the world we see all around us is just an illusion anyway. It's a dream world where we've created a lot of nightmares. But through stillness, through practicing the workbook lessons, through a mantra like, I will be still an instant and go home, we begin to remember that this world is not our home, and we begin to remember our real world and our real purpose. And we begin to remember that everyone is our brother, that we are here with one purpose, and that is to love. And by loving each other, by tuning into that stillness, the nightmares of our inner and our outer world can turn into happy dreams. So my invitation to you is that as you go into this week, if you don't already have a meditation or prayer practice, I strongly encourage you to start one. And it can be so simple. You can sit there for 5 minutes before you even get out of bed, before you touch your phone. Sit in stillness, repeat a mantra. I will be still an instant and go home. I will be still an instant and go home. I hope you have a wonderful week. And I hope that you can practice this and experience some stillness. And I know that if you do, that you'll begin to see miracles within and without. Until then, take care of yourselves.